Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rewriting the Narrative. Mare, how are you today?
I'm doing very good. As we were just talking, today is a crossing off the list day, and that's a great day.
I feel like we had a fall fog lift. Like there was like a lot of it was like the leaves were falling and it was not just you and I. It was like a collective energy of like a lot shifting. And now I don't know, I just had three just really big client wins this week, like with health markers, improving, getting some lab results back. And I mean, for us, we are official as far as our launch of our new mentorship space. So we revealed that to our coaches yesterday on our group mentorship call, just showing them the back end of our new Fortify education platform that we have been building out for, you said 6 weeks, but I feel like it has been longer than that.
No, and the reason I know is because of Labor Day weekend. That's like literally like when like for any coaches here, that's when like the credit card went down and the official shit happened because the week before that, it was 7 weeks. So in 7 weeks, we transitioned, and I'm just gonna flex for a second. In 7 weeks, so the week before Labor Day is when we officially started transitioning our website from one platform to the other platform because we were doing that the week that we were in Tampa visiting, which was the last week of August. And so
Okay.
that is when we started doing that and we started playing around with what we had available to us on the education platform and started organizing ourselves. And so literally it was game on for the education platform, which is more than that. Like for people who aren't in it, just to give you like a tease or explain it, we essentially have this platform that now has a education hub. It has a video library of every single group mentorship call that we have had in 2 years. Now we have two call times. We're also starting as of, I think it was last month, we also host open office hours that have thus far been invite only. These have not been open to the public. We have not advertised them. They have been by invite only to those who we talk to via email, people that we see in the space. And those are also uploaded in there. Our community that Sarah created, that like I even had to watch her tutorial video because I was like, what the heck has she this is like amazing. We have an entire like lab work portal now where coaches can get estimates and start opening up that dialogue with their clients about this is how much this is, or even just discussing like lab work in their area. It's crazy. Like it's huge. All the master classes we've done are in there for the coaches. We have 3 tiers now. So we have 3 levels of mentorship. We have a core, a fortified core. We have our group. We have our one-on-one mentorship. It's amazing. It's pretty cool, and it's like you said yesterday. Like yesterday was day one of a next chapter. So like we're not done. Like we got plans, people.
No, no, no. This is just no, we can have it public facing and live now. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So lots of organization, lots of organization. And I think what's really profound for Sarah and I is I think that we for oh sorry, I don't know if my internet did a glitch there. What I think what was really profound for Sarah and I is we had, I think, a pretty reflective moment where we realized how much information, one, that we wanted to continue to provide, but then two, that we have. We just needed to organize it in a much, like I said on my stories yesterday, we outgrew Google Drive very quickly. So it's exciting.
Very exciting stuff. And the podcast episode today was actually inspired by a call or a question from one of the coaches on the call. I feel like we are always talking about micronutrients, but this one specifically kind of came up in the context of mental health and maybe some blind spots that women just don't realize that they could have at any age or stage. We were actually talking about a 25-year-old, who was looking to like start taking ownership of her health. Like, okay, like we're ready to leave behind like what TikTok says or not do anything, right? It's like that either extreme of doing what, all the things the internet says or not really doing anything is kind of like where I feel like where a lot of women are. But she was ready to start like taking ownership with some lab work. So we were talking about like what we would start with there. And then we started to talk about like considerations for this human specifically, starting to talk about like her history with anxiety, depression, and then different medications, ADD. So before we kind of get into it, I think the big thing is like starting with like that lab work, because most women, I would say, when we talk about micronutrients, I'll even go beyond the lab work. When we talk about micronutrients, there's like a state of deficiency where, you're deficient, right? You're depleted. But then there's also like, you're not getting enough to really be optimal. So maybe there's an inadequacy in your diet or in your absorption, of nutrients. That's something we talked about on that iron episode. But, you may not be deficient enough to be like clinically red flag out of range in labs, but you might be having those like subtle signs in your biofeedback, like fatigue, like trouble focusing, like anxiety. We might be seeing it, we will be seeing it impacting, your hormones and whatnot. So that's kind of like, I think people think like, oh, I'm not deficient. Well, maybe it's not adequate. You're not at an adequate level, or you're not getting enough considering what you're also asking your body to do, whether it's maybe with training or with pregnancy goals or, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I think you've actually said it on a previous podcast, because I think a lot of women and a lot of people in general assume that if they are eating, then they're fine, regardless of the quantity that they're eating, how much they're eating over the course of the day. But if they have eaten, that is enough. And it's not enough. And I think that too, especially with women overall, this is where that discussion of constantly chasing a smaller body, and even a lot of women actually enjoy the feeling of not being full, having hunger, or it can even become like a game as far as like leaving extra on your plate, which that can just kind of domino into further under eating. But I think that for a lot of women, when we talk about, just tracking food or not tracking food, whether it's, meal plans or not, just eating food most often is not enough, especially as and I say age, but I don't mean like, necessarily in your 60s. I'm talking about like women in their 20s, like your body is not that of like, a 12-year-old who, again, we can argue how much children need, which is arguably a lot. But I think that that's really important, that just because you ate doesn't mean that you're actually giving your body enough nutrients to really thrive.
Yeah, we see that. I mean, all the time. Like when we onboard people, or just, or talking to people and looking, or like, what did you eat yesterday? And a lot of times, like what you ate yesterday is you're reflective of, your habitual intake. And it's like, oh girl, like you're not eating nearly enough. And they may not even realize it, and that's, and it definitely will catch up to you. It's like, you want to think of it, like we talk about the bank account analogy with under eating, like calories, but if you're under eating nutrients, micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, same, amino acids, even like we're talking about like, protein intake too here. So yeah, micronutrients, they're, mind your micronutrients is what I like to say.
Yeah, I think, what's that statement? You measure or manage what you measure or something like that. And I do see that, not necessarily that everybody, should track for their entire life or all the time, but I do see that as a really great learning opportunity. Just we talk about potassium so much, and I think like that's if you're really wanting to like look in your micronutrients, look at your fiber, look at those potassium goals and see like where are you lining up? Because just eating food, you can still be micronutrient deficient. Eating, like you've said before, eating maintenance, you can still be micronutrient deficient. And a lot of people, they don't want to focus on it because they're focused on so many things that are happening in their life on the day-to-day basis that putting emphasis on their nutrition can be a big friction point because they're having to focus on themselves or having to pull their attention away, and that can be a really 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 big friction point for a lot of people. And I often, tell people it's not that it has to be a friction point, but it's going to be different. Like it's no more so than when you start a new job and you're on a new computer system. You're going to have to think about, doing the day to day a little bit more until you get used to it. And so putting focus on how many colors am I getting? How often am I eating? And I think that when, we onboard clients or, talk to the coaches that we mentor, getting that food diary right there, it just creating awareness is such a huge thing. And something that we talk about often and where I really see it for women so much is because women, we generally are focused the majority of our life on being smaller.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just where I see it quite often.
Totally. And I think like the big awareness piece can also be, like you said, like your new job, like trying to understand this new tech platform, that nutrition piece, not getting in those micronutrients that we're going to talk about, some key players here coming up, but that's making your job a whole lot harder. So we can say that, we're chasing these big goals, whether it's career, whether it's training, maybe we're trying to get pregnant, like whatever it is, I don't have time to think about this. Like, no, actually giving this a little attention and, like you said, making it that game of addition is going to help you feel so much less stressed out and overwhelmed in those areas that, you are wanting to maybe devote more, quote, attention to.
Yeah,
Which brings me to, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't think attention needs to be negative either. And I
No,
think that's one thing that, I think that a lot of people, they don't create attention. They don't focus on things until there's a problem. And I think
right.
that a lot of people, when it comes to like their nutrition, when it comes down to their body, awareness, etc., it always tends to be associated with something is wrong with it. And so I need to focus on it. And I'm like, no, like you're a living, breathing human being. Like that's cool. There doesn't have to be something wrong with your body to focus on it. I think that just reframing that's important.
That's why I really love that word, like nourishment, instead of like, how can you like, get more food or get more micronutrients? How can you nourish your body? That's why
Hmm.
I really like it, from that framework. But speaking of stress, so we mentioned like low calorie diets, like not eating enough intentionally or not being a huge reason why micronutrient deficiencies happen, but stress as well, like modern, stress levels, like just in our work and chronically, that can like deplete the body, deplete those adrenal glands. We're always talking in our calls about, like you mentioned, potassium, vitamin C, sodium, nutrients that your adrenal glands, your body needs, thinking of them as those spark plugs for your energy levels, including your mental energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that understanding that it is truly all connected, because like you mentioned with stress and then perhaps under eating, we've talked numerous times about how that can affect, for example, you said absorption of nutrients earlier. So if we are having these stresses and perhaps we're under eating or eating quicker, and just it's not that it's like this one isolated thing. It's typically there's just like this compounding, right? Is that bucket just keeps getting full,
Right.
and then before you know it, we are in a place where perhaps, stomach acid is lower. Maybe there is dysbiosis or there's not. So it can feel a little bit overwhelming in that respect. But I think that peeling back the layers and getting to those foundations and again, focusing on, like you said, nourishing your body truly can go so, so, so far.
And understanding that modern stressors is not just that mental stuff, or like I'm going to keep using that tech example because that's one of our modern stressors. But thinking about things maybe not within our control or things that we do choose to take on. Like I'll, shout her out. My girl who just finished her first 50 miler, that is some big time training that she was asking, her body to do. So we were having like those conversations that, oh yeah, like you think you're getting enough iron and vitamin C right now. Let's think about like what you are asking your body to do and chatting about some of the things that you're experiencing in your biofeedback. It makes sense that like if we haven't, and again, intentionally or not, if we haven't actively, increased, using that example, the red meat in her diet, we haven't actively been paying attention to more vitamin C. Well, this training demand is demanding more of those nutrients from you, and your absorption of, for example, that iron is impacted here because of that hard endurance training. So when we think about increasing training stress, we're also going to have to think about how can we support on that nutrition, side. Other modern stressors that we talked about yesterday were medications. That is, I'm going to use the term a stressor kind of loosely with that one, but it is something that the body has to now metabolize, and it is something that can deplete you of micronutrients. So talking about antidepressants, for example, we're talking about depletion of B vitamins. We're talking about possibly needing more support, with folate, with B12, things that actually do help your cognitive functioning, which we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more later on. But birth control, that was another one that came up.
Yep.
That one,
Exactly.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I'll say we see that we see that often. That actually came up last night also in a call with one of the coaches who her client is now in a place where she wants to come off birth control. And that other conversation we talked about is fertility is on the table. This is a case where also it can be very overwhelming for the client because now this is a main focus. Now it's a concern. And so if somebody, for example, is in this situation where now they're like, okay, well, I want to come off hormonal birth control and then I want to get pregnant and da 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 da. But if we haven't had the foundations yet of those nutrients and we haven't been nourishing the body, then we might need to take a moment and say, hey, we are depleted of these things. We need to start adding in and preparing the body, replenishing the body as much as we can prior to coming off hormonal birth control, and then continuing to do that in preparation for pregnancy.
Absolutely. Should we talk about some of our like top players? Because this came to mind like when we were talking about that 25-year-old with, struggling with mental health and her ability to focus, anxiety, depression. Mare and I are pro using tools available for us, that include antidepressants and anxiety medication, ADHD medication. We're also pro looking at the big picture of health and not being able to separate the physical from the mental. And a lack of micronutrients can lead to someone's or contribute further to somebody's poor mental health or inability to focus. And that is biology. And
Yeah.
I'm going to butcher the quote, but I heard something along the lines of psychology is misinterpreted biology. And that just like got me thinking. And I totally butchered that quote. So don't quote me because I butchered the quote. But it is, very true. It's also interconnected. So like thinking about like those B vitamins, B6, B12, folate, these guys that birth control depletes you of, that antidepressants deplete you of, are so key for neurotransmitters, for your energy levels, again, physical, mental, for healthy hormone levels. So we've had episodes where we talk about like low hormones and how that impacts your mood and your ability to focus and your sex life and everything else, right? Like all of, these other like areas of our life. So yeah, it does matter. Vitamin D, like that's like one I feel like we see and talk about a lot, talking about depression or cognitive functioning, just more and more coming out about nutrients and what role they play from a global health standpoint.
Yeah, I would say like that. And going off the vitamin D, one thing that I know both of us talk to our clients about in all of these cases too, and this is one micronutrient or mineral spark plug that we really often support very early on, which is magnesium, being the
Yeah. Oh,
co-founder of
yeah.
so many things. And I find that especially with we have anxiety or inability to calm down at the end of the evening or restless legs, fidgetiness, like I often do think about that person's magnesium status. And it's not just that they are perhaps deficient, although that is often the case, but how much that they're utilizing, to your point with your friend after the ultra marathon. And is it a place that that we get them, repleted or replenished, or I should say, we get them replenished and then that's it. I haven't found that for most people. For most people, I find that when it comes down to those base minerals, magnesium, potassium, again, mineral vitamins like vitamin D, B vitamins, I do find that those go so far. As well as I'll just mention one thing that's not necessarily a micronutrient, but hydration. That is something I see really, really often when I'm hearing anything with cognition. I'm really asking myself, like, going into the mineral thing, like, not just are you drinking water, but are you drinking thirsty water? Again, like, I see a lot of people that drink a lot of water, but they're not replenishing the minerals, etc., especially if they're drinking a lot of filtered water, which I champion drinking filtered water.
Yeah, that's right. We're always minerals and chill and adrenal cocktail are the two that we're always mentioning because they do provide that whole food vitamin C and sodium and potassium. Creatine too. And talking about
Yeah.
amino acids, which yes, those are found in supplements. People hear creatine and they think supplements, which yes, supplements like top that off, but we get creatine through meat in our diet as well. So,
Yep.
and what else do we get through, complete proteins is amino acids. And
Hmm.
again, you're back to neurotransmitters and cognitive functioning. That is, there you go. L-carnitine, as well. Like again, amino acids,
Love.
thinking about like supporting cognitive health and fertility, even these are like two like nutrients that sure,
A
maybe you're
hundred
not
percent.
deficient in, but maybe you might benefit supplementing or consuming more of. And that's why I do really like Legion's Recharge. It has
Yep.
creatine and L-carnitine in it, and it's flavored, so it tastes good. If you do want to try it, you can use code FORD at checkout to support the show. I'll put the link in the show notes. But that's Recharge with Legion, and I really like that they have that efficacious dosing. Here again, though, like thinking about 1-2 punches that might really help as far as supporting someone on the micronutrient, side of things. But back
Yeah.
to the protein, simply eating more protein in your meals, like increasing that portion size, maybe that helps as far as like that nutrient repletion, or it just helps you not feel like a basket case at work, right? Because we're getting those amino acids.
Yeah, here again, like this is where we do believe so much in supplementation. You mentioned Legion, and I am so bad, but their electrolyte powder, what's the name of it again?
It's hydrate. It's just called hydrate.
Hydrate. Oh, hydrate. Oh my gosh. So that one I did try while I was in Tampa. Absolutely loved it. My husband, Sarah actually gave us some samples while we were visiting from Canada. The fruit punch, amazing. I'm going to say right now, I do enjoy Legion. That's a company that I do recommend a lot of my clients, especially, well, I mean, the recharge you mentioned. I do like utilizing L-carnitine for, again, my clients that are looking to conceive, but even beyond that, I love L-carnitine and creatine. Those are two like ones, I mean, brain health, you name it. But again, like protein powder, we had just a stunt come out about protein powders and qualities, etc. We have a newsletter that you can still read, I believe, if you look on our Facebook website or Facebook site. I'm sorry, I'm not good on the Facebook stuff, but the Fortify Health Facebook page, there should be a link to that. This is where, again, getting quality protein powder. And here again, Legion is amazing about, if you go to their site, they actually have links to studies, which I really appreciate. But I think that those are some really easy ways, especially going back to being busy, is utilizing supplementation in a smart way and using it to kind of garnish or put the sprinkles on what you're doing on your day to day, I think is important. But I really just want everyone to hear, like, when it comes down to looking at our micronutrients, a great time to reassess your micronutrients and your nutrition as a whole is when you need to go to the grocery store. That is like the best time to just take a pause and say, I typically grab this, let me grab this instead. And it can be like simple, like really simple stuff. Like, instead of like grabbing the amazing, if you eat anything else other than this type of apple, you're just an animal, but it's fine. I won't judge you. Instead of buying the Honeycrisp apples, maybe you buy the, what is it? The Bosoc pear, BOSC. Do you want to talk about that
Yeah,
pear?
I'm not a pear girl, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay. And again, maybe instead of getting the Honeycrisp apple, because that's again the only type you should be buying and eating, you buy the golden kiwis, which is again the only type of kiwis you should be eating. But again, I don't judge.
Here with the expensive fruits. My God. God.
They're
Okay.
the best. They are the
I
best.
disagree.
They are the best.
Anything but Red Delicious as far as apple.
Oh my God, it's horrendous. Why would you do that to
No, no, no.
yourself?
Anything but Red Delicious.
Yeah.
No, no,
Oh,
no. But like, you know how much a Honeycrisp apple is?
I know. I know. It's like
Actually,
it's
you
like
guys, if
pink.
you're in Florida, I love me some Publix. Definitely robs you though. Aldi. Aldi is the move for the Honeycrisp apple deals.
Okay.
But eating seasonally,
So
it's fall. Like that's a great way to get in more, just diversity of micronutrients.
farmers market.
Farmers market, it's about to be that season here in Florida. I know that season is just ending for a lot of people. So that's a great way because what happens when you eat seasonally, you're getting a little bit more micronutrients because those, there's going to be like less shipping, the soil quality. And that's another thing too. And like magnesium, like for example, like our soil just isn't what it was 100 years ago as far as like our foods really having just that robust amount of micronutrients, in them. Even thinking about like just again like budget, I love salmon. I would eat salmon like daily if I could. It's more cost effective for me to supplement 2 grams of fish oil than it is for me, to do that salmon. Now, when a salmon's on sale, or, whatever, like I rotate it in, because I do feel a difference. Like when I make changes in my diet, like red meat, for example, like there was a time like a couple months ago where I was like, I just felt draggy and I was like, why do I feel so draggy? And I'm like, you know what? I've been lazy. Like that was what it was for me. Like I was honestly just being lazy with meal prep. So I started just prepping more beef. I definitely felt that difference, adding that in. So I think it is just important to look at both the supplements and, the diet, and then also looking at your health like holistically, because there's one thing to eat enough, but then if we're not absorbing it, which could be like if you're having a lot of GI issues, like if you're shitting your brains out, like, okay, like how great is our nutrient absorption right now? If you're, maybe like, this came up on the call yesterday, gallbladder, whether, maybe we had our gallbladder removed, or maybe gallbladder liver health isn't so hot right now, bile, acid isn't, helping us absorb our fat. So maybe like we do need either some supplementation or to look more globally here to support your health, to make sure that we are getting in, those micronutrients.
Yeah. You're gonna hate me. I'm gonna squirrel for a second.
Are you
And
going
I
to go
just
back
have
to
to say on
Honeycrisp
this.
apples? If you go back to Honeycrisp apples, I'm going to hate you. Go ahead, squirrel.
No, not specifically, but I'm just gonna ask, like, what are your go-to stores? Like, are you somebody that's like, I go to one store, Publix for everything? Because as you know, we have recently in our household evolved. Unfortunately, we're going to multiple stores, but we have gone to a store that we have not been to in years, and we were very pleasantly surprised with their produce, in which literally for like blueberries, the difference between like $5 for the same
You're not going to
company.
shout out the store?
I'm gonna shout out Walmart.
Go Walmart. I don't go to so for me, my shopping, and this will resonate with people, is very much like location based
Yeah.
too. So we do default to Publix a lot because it is so close. I mean, you've seen, well, maybe you don't remember, but Publix is so close to my house. I am the nerd that gets the weekly ads to my inbox. So I shop like the BOGOs and the deals at Publix. Like, for example, raspberries were 99 cents this week. So I was on, that was like my raspberry thing. We also do Costco a lot. Costco is very cost
Yes.
effective. Frozen, just as good as fresh, you guys. Like we get frozen veggies, like frozen broccoli,
Yep.
frozen like mixed berries at Costco. I'll get like
Same.
potatoes there. We get our meat there, eggs. It's all a lot cheaper there. If I can make the trip to Aldi or like hit that on the way, I really like Aldi specific locations. Back to locations, I do not venture to Wally World because anybody that is local to Tampa, anyone that knows me, you will know that the Walmart that is closest in proximity to my house, I've been to like twice, maybe 3 times alone in my life. And all 3 times it was like, game face on, do not F with me because I will kill you, because that's the way you have to present yourself going to this Walmart. There's literally police in the Walmart. Like, I live in a nice area, but that is the closest Walmart to me. So that's why I don't
Yeah.
go to Walmart, is
Yeah.
that safety concern.
Yeah, no. I probably should say the we was like a royal we. It's actually my husband that goes to Walmart.
Oh,
So
he does.
I will
Okay.
just be clear. But again, like Costco, like to your point, now I will say the Costco in the US and the Costco in Canada is a little bit different, but because Sarah and them like y'all will show your carts and I'm like, we don't have that here. But speaking of the salmon thing, that is one thing that we have found is individually packed skinless salmon. And yeah, like already
Frozen?
like and they come frozen. They come vacuum sealed in packs. And again, it's like not like the quality is like really, really good. We found that. And then we found a couple other, I think some other whitefish. I will say the other thing that I am really, I love ground red meat. Like that's it. I just find it so easy. I can
Me
put it
too.
in rice. I can make tacos with it. I love a good pita wrap. Just, I love that. But shrimp, rice, and veggies is just it's just so good. Like that's a thing. Shrimp is not expensive. It is something that if you like to eat volume, not going to be your friend because the shrimpies are going to get a little bit smaller. But that's another really great way that you can get some variety is if you're used to always getting chicken, which again, we hear you, love some boneless, skinless chicken, love the big thing at Costco, but grab grab some friends, do that too. Grab some
Fish are
frozen
friends,
shrimp.
not food.
Yeah, grab some frozen fish like shrimp and things like that. Number one, like half of it, like if you want to eat it cold, all you have to do is defrost it. It's already cooked and it doesn't take long. Like that's the big thing I think that scares people about nutrition and micronutrients is they think they need this, landish recipe. And I'm like, no, girl, like you don't need this crazy thing.
This is my one hill that I die on when it comes to micronutrients and tracking macros. And I want to say this before we jump into our next segment here. If you are not eating some of these foods, like the salmon, like the shrimp, ground beef, if you're not eating these foods because you don't know how to accurately track it in MyFitnessPal, we have a big problem. And I hear that all of the time and I look at, we look at these food diaries and it's all or mostly like packaged things, or it's like the same old, because that's what I can comfortably or confidently weigh out and measure and, think that I'm getting, the most accurate, entry on MyFitnessPal. And that's my safe food. And I see that all the time from women. And it definitely, in my opinion, is like a poor relationship with food and a form of restricting, in a sense, if you can only eat stuff that you are super confident about tracking. Because here's the other thing, back to your Honeycrisp apple, even if you're using the USDA data, weighing out that apple to the gram, the parts that you are eating only, there's still going to be a margin of error because maybe the soil was a little different this week at Farmer Billy's. And that apple is not quite the 23 grams of carbs that you measured out on your food scale, right?
Right.
Or maybe you got a little bit of that apple stuck in your tooth and spit it out, whatever, because choking hazard. Okay, you missed out on that 0.05 grams of carb, right?
Oh
So,
my
like,
gosh.
but like, or your food labels, honestly, there's up to a 20% discrepancy there in your food label. So, your safe food of, I don't know what, prepackaged something is probably more off than, getting in that salmon, right? So I did just want to say that because like that's where like I like the mind your micronutrients, and this is where I'll like having clients try, or I'll even plug in for myself for clients in Chronometer, because it looks at not just your macros, but it looks at your micronutrients, as well.
Yeah, that's actually something I've been putting on almost, well, a large amount of my clients, their check-in sheets is not just tracking like protein, carbs, fiber, but putting potassium on there and just saying like, hey, where is this? And which has opened up a dialogue with even clients who have been tracking and they are like OGs at it because they're like, some of the things I've been tracking have not even been tracking potassium. And I'm like, number one, these are folks that like they don't freak out about it. They're just like, oh, I never really looked at that, but I realized that this is probably just somebody inputting this, or even like some of the stuff was USDA, right? Like trying to do the right thing. And they're like, but there's no potassium. And it's like potatoes. We know potatoes are loaded with potassium. If you want to get some potassium, I know everyone's like reaching for a banana.
Nope.
Grab some potatoes, girl.
Nope. I'm going to tell you my meal to hit at least 2,000 milligrams of potassium: eggs and egg whites, potatoes, and like spinach, like some type of like green veggie. That's going to give you, again, depending on the quantity of the potato. Your girl is eating some potato over here, but that gives me like around like that 2,000 like milligrams. And like, that's like, boom,
Absolutely.
like almost like, like that's like half my goal, right?
Yeah.
Easy peasy. So yeah, I think minding your micronutrients is so important. And for coaches too, like measuring, like looking at, those labs, encouraging our clients to get even just those basics of the CMP, the CBC, getting that full iron panel, because that alone can tell us so much. And that like came up in the call yesterday too, like how should this client, how, can I recommend, she start with labs? And yes, like we can facilitate the ordering of lab work and more comprehensive stuff out of pocket. But if someone is just going to their provider, not like knocking just getting a CMP and a CBC, that can give us some indication of, hey, what's going on with those adrenal glands? What's going on with your electrolyte balance here, which could be impacting your cognitive functioning? What's going on with, your nutrient status? Like, what are we looking at iron wise, ferritin wise? And thinking about, again, like that okay range, like in range versus like optimal. Like I had somebody who literally like was like at her because of the lab that they used, her ferritin was like a 14 or a 16. And
Oh, wow.
I don't know what lab this was, but it didn't flag it. That is incredibly low, ladies and gentlemen. And this same client actually recently chose to go off antidepressants because of the side effects from that antidepressant. Well, oh my gosh, this could be such a huge opportunity to really increase. And I looked at her food diary and I'm like, listen, babe, like I keep telling you to do these things. This is like wow, my body really does need more animal protein, in my diet, and not just chicken, and we need to really like increase like these micronutrients here. And this is a clear flag that we need more of them. And it goes back to, the goals that you have from a mental health standpoint.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, well, I think we covered a lot of practical things. If you guys have shopping tips too, like be sure to absolutely share. The other thing that we always mention as a supplement, but you could totally do it if you're a little bit more adventurous, is organ meats. So have you ever seen that Ancestral blend? I think is the
I
name.
have.
Sprouts has it. Sprouts has it, but they have like ground beef, ground like venison, and it has organ meats like sprinkled in. You could also do like a beef liver supplement. But that was like one thing that I just kind of thought about. But yeah, I mean, like when it comes to just like supporting like health like globally, micronutrients are such a blind spot that people have.
Yep, it is. And just next time you go to the store, instead of grabbing that Honey Crisp, although you maybe should, grab something different.
Beef it up.
Spice it up. Spice up your life.
Okay, bye guys.